Okay, so that was the original thing. I remember the lollipop there, Dan's lollipop. That was really nice telescope that you used quite a bit. And then what was really impressive was however was your 28-inch telescope. So I hadn't been there more than 10 or 15 minutes, and the door opens up and out comes this 28-inch lovely telescope. At any rate, so I wanted to let's see how we get this to advance. There we go. So I think, there's been two or three themes kind of the AltAz initiative, and one of them has been mirrors. And so what's the latest on David Davis and the kilns?
Well, the latest on David is that he came down with COVID a couple of days ago, which is why he's not here.
Okay.
Yes.
And what about his kilns and making slumping thin things?
I'm not sure, but I think Mel could probably talk to that more than anyone else here.
Yeah, give us a brief rundown, Mel.
So David's been working with his homemade kilns for many years, supplying us with thin mirrors. A few years ago, we'll remember he got into what he calls pie plate mirrors. I prefer to call them cylindrically engineered mirrors to give it a more engineering term. And, I'm not quite sure where he is exactly and what kiln he has up and running. I think he's presaged us by so many years that he's off in new and further directions. We're just trying very hard to keep up with them, turning these into telescopes and making observations.
So he's been making the blanks for you, and you all have then been converting them into good mirrors and telescopes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So and then we're going to hear more from Mel, but Mel, how long have you been doing meniscus mirrors now? Almost from the beginning, right?
Yes. Do I have to admit how long it's really been?
It's been well, the AltAz initiative has been going on for 15 years, so it must be something close to that.
So I'll admit to 15 years. More than that, I'll just say it's idle speculation.
Yeah, okay. At any rate, it's paying off. And Howard, I'm really looking forward to your talk, kind of how your original telescope design is refined and the mirrors is now being replaced with one of Mel's 30-inch. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, you'll hear all about it tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think there's another theme here that you and Mel and others have carried through, and this is visual observing with the large aperture fast telescopes, and so that are portable. And at any rate, I think that's admirable. Another theme that has gone through is just the expansive coating mirrors. So we have been at it for a long time on the silvering mirrors, and it looks like we've got a talk, and so that's apparently one of the successes. We've got Tong Lu and his sandwich mirrors, and he has refined these. I think he started going on the sandwich mirrors about the time the AltAz initiative got started, and so he's been to some of our meetings and has been kind of the part of the crew. And his ultralight portable telescope's been quite successful. He sold lots of them, and he has now on the first robotic telescope farm in China, he has one of his 1 meter telescopes. So that's a part of what we've been done that's gone to 1 meter, which was kind of, as Howard was saying, was kind of an original dream. I want to mention too, not all the large telescopes, mirrors and so forth were a success. I remember one of the great ones was the David Davis and remember his what was it, a 1 meter segmented mirror? You know,
Oh, it's the 60-inch segmented mirror.
60 inch,
Call
yeah,
it test.
test, yeah. And he had it in, remember, didn't he set something up on fire up at Prime Focus?
Yeah, I think he got a piece of paper on fire by pointing it at the sun.
Yeah. And of course, we had our good friend from Florida and his floating mirrors and the foam mirrors.
Yeah,
I
Andrew.
heard from him recently. Still working on his anti-gravity thing. I never knew whether to take him seriously or not.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah. At any rate, and then there was my 60-inch Big Woody, which was less than successful. Anyway, then another thread, kind of going back to what Howard mentioned, was the idea of learning from large, telescopes, AltAz mountain telescope, modern ones, and bringing it down to. So we had a number of trips. I think kind of the first one was Tom Smith and I went to Magdalena Ridge and spent a day with the chief engineer there, literally crawling through the 2.4 meter telescope. So it had the good Hubble mirror. So they put the bad one in space and the good backup went to Magdalena Ridge, and they had a direct drive motor. You could actually crawl inside the telescope and look at the magnets and coils around, and they had big racks of the stuff to power it. And then Dan, and that was just a wonderful trip, Dan. Mention if you can someone from the audience sound like Mel could talk. And Dan, tell us about the trip to Hawaii.
Might want to come over here so the laptop can hear you.
Because that was a key moment when we
Yeah, we visited the Gemini telescope, and so we had this really nice guy that was our tour guide. We also had the chief electrical engineer, and so we were on the same language. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic. And later on, Russ made him the author on a paper. I can't remember, but like he always does. And anyway, we had a really great time. And then on Sunday, I'm going to be giving a talk about the Jimmyscope. And there's one thing that I learned from that engineer. But so we were on the same language. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic. And later on, Russ made him the author on a paper. I can't remember, but like he always does.
I'm not sure.
And we had a really great time. And then on Sunday, I'm going to be giving a talk about the Jimmyscope. And there's one thing that I learned from that engineer. But so we were on the same language. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic. And later on, Russ made him the author on a paper. I can't remember, but like he always does.
I'm not sure.
And we had a really great time. On Sunday, I'm going to be giving a talk about the Jimmyscope. And there's one thing that I learned from that.
Sounds like you were in an infinite loop there. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah.
Okay.
At any rate, it was we learned about direct drives there.
Yeah, but let me tell one thing, just
Okay.
in the middle of saying when I was interrupted by myself. There's one key thing on the Jimmyscope that I learned crawling through the bowels of the Gemini telescope with Russ and Cheryl. And I'll share that on Sunday, but yes, so learning, yes. And then we visited the one from Japan, what was that called?
The Subaru.
Subaru telescope. And that's where we saw the direct drive on the azimuth. It was just, I mean, just having these tours of having Russ as Dr. Russ and his connections, it was just mind-boggling. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. So when we got back, I ordered a book. It was like $75 on direct drive motors, and it had all these equations on the magnetic field and so forth. It was totally beyond me. So I shipped it off to Dave Rowe, and he understood this stuff. And pretty soon he's winding coils, and this is, so this was Dan's first direct drive, his control system. And then this was a motor that Dave Rowe made in his back garage. You can see the magnets along here and the coils underneath. And so then that was part of a project when I was at Cal Poly. And so I had two teams of students, and they built the Cal Poly 18. It was a bit of a rush job when students get towards the end of the semester. But anyway, and Tong supplied the primary mirror. Howard, you supplied some parts for this, or worked on some.
Yeah, I made the primary mirror cell.
Yeah, and so anyway, it all came together, and it was kind of working, but not really. And so it got shipped off. And Dan, I think you spent like 2 or 3 years getting it to really work. And then it went off to Richard for Barry for a while, and he worked on. But Dan, it's back to Dan, and Dan's about to get it operational again, doing good research in the summer. But anyway, that kind of got us into direct drive. And then it went 2 directions from there. One was Dave being the chief technical officer at Plane Wave. So Plane Wave picked it up first for their CDK 700, and then for their 1 meter telescope. They're working on a 1.5 meter. And also they went back in the other direction and used it on smaller mounts, their L mount series. And so direct drive is kind of became ubiquitous on Plane Wave complete telescope systems. And then the other is Dan continued on with direct drive. So here's his, this is the 4th one, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and what he's been doing, not only building telescopes with direct drive like the one he's going to present, but he's been going around and refurbishing various telescopes around the planet, bringing them up to the modern age. So Dan, I think this is the 1.3 meter down at Sierra Tololo.
I thought it was CTIO.
CTIO.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yes, yeah, CTIO.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think this is actually it. So he's about when you head in for Chile, Dan?
At the end of November.
Okay. So at any rate, Plane Wave is building new system, and Dan is going around and bringing older systems up to snuff. And so at any rate, the AltAz niches had lots of impact. Well, I want to talk now a little bit about the science being done and students. That's kind of my thing is student with science. And I think the most successful so far, I started at Cuesta College in 2007, and Rachel and I have taught there for quite a while, and we've had lots of other schools, but the most successful has been Pat and Grady Boyce. And this is their, and it took them a few years to get it all worked out and running. Robotic telescopes aren't easy, but this is a CDK 17 on an equatorial wedge, 40 miles east of San Diego. And not only did they get it working, and it's nicely instrumented. You can see it's got the 4-port optic thing. But what they did that's really important is they managed to keep it busy with students. And there has to be, they must be approaching 100 papers now with student co-authors from the San Diego area. And so they've been able to kind of pull the whole thing together, get an observatory going, get a telescope going, really good website, educational material, and just a stream of students and papers and so forth. And so anyway, but that's a direct drive in action there, the direct descendant from the early AltAz initiative. And most recently, a number of us, I've been involved with it, but particularly Rick Wasson and Scott Dixon and others. So we've been making observations, speckle observations, and they've been fully automated. So speckle, we tried to automate it some time ago, but this was the first really successful. And it was due to Nick Hardy in Belgium, making a kind of plug-in, an app for Nina, and one of the online high school Calais students in Germany, Leon, and so Leon and Nick, working with Dave and other folks from PlaneWave and various help, got 2 telescopes down here. They're both under one of the roll-off roofs, 1 meter PlaneWave and a 0.6 meter on an L mount. And we're doing various types of regular kind of time series photometry, like exoplanet transit and things like that. But also we're getting going. It's a little teething problems, but at any rate, data's coming out. Rick Wasson has some papers already on automated speckle interferometry. It just does it automatically, and you pick up observations the following day or so. So anyway, that's been a big success. This is, I had my telescope in California, so it got moved here. The observatory enclosure got built fairly soon. This is a tilt up roof. It tilts up about this position. Southern skies down that way. So not much exposure to the far north, but nothing really lost. And this is a friend of mine here that helps. I'm getting at 82, I don't lift heavy things anymore, so we need a little young blood. But this is the L mount that I built with students at Cal Poly. And then this is Dan's direct drive system. So here it is in RA. And here's this is actually backwards. So here's the coils in deck. And I put on the magnets, but it's supposed to be the other way around, just to counterweight this while we were putting on, getting everything all squared away. And we're about to lower the magnets, which is a careful operation. Dan just made a jig for me to lower the magnets instead of going whomp and crunching your fingers or something of the sort. At any rate, the observatory is coming along. This is my new academic home. So this is Payson Community College, and they've been very welcoming. So I'm starting up an astronomy program here and an aviation program, and they've provided us money to put up a simulator, and I put in a request, and we're pretty sure we're going to get it for a 0.5 meter PlaneWave telescope. We may put it under a dome at the school, or we may put it down in Chile or out at SRO or someplace. We're going to wait till we get the okay from the granting agency and the PlaneWave starting to build it, then we'll decide what we're going to do with it. And I have a always kind of keen interest in science, and so I've been, what can we do with our small telescopes? Of course, there's exoplanet transits and variable stars and so forth. But I've always had kind of an interest in binary stars. So this is from Gaia, the DR3, and I'm looking at 2 things. One is astrometric new orbits. They've got something around 100,000 new astrometric binaries that have been discovered, and they have orbits for them. The way they get orbits is the Gaia just spins around in the sky and rotates around, and so it's covered every spot in the sky, every object in the sky, some 2 billion of them, between 20 times and roughly 200 times over the past 6 or 7 years, with a median value of about 80. So every object has 80 observations. And so the astrometric orbits, you're getting stuff. The eclipsing binaries, you can just picture a light curve with 80 points kind of randomly put on it. And so if it's been eclipsing, then you're going to get these repeated, and you overlay it, you'll get, a fairly decent curve. But it can't be a very long period, or they won't catch it enough. And so you can see the periods start around, half a day, and these kind of contact binaries, and go out, by 7 or 8 days, there aren't very many more. And so these are ones that they're distorted, but they're definitely separated and doing eclipses. At any rate, we're talking with astronomers in France and elsewhere and making up our target list to observe these on the remote robotic telescopes this fall. And this is the last slide. The other thing I've been working on is small space telescopes. We're going to have our 3rd American Astronomical Society workshop up in Seattle. So if any of you want to go to that, our workshop's actually going to be on the 4th and 5th, the Saturday and Sunday immediately prior to the work.